we read to know that we are not alone. This is a quote by C.S. Lewis, and while it's a simple quote, it is something that really resonates with me now and is probably one of my favorite quotes. Like, obviously there's other reasons to read, like if you want to be entertained, but I think that a major reason why people read is because they just want to know that there's somebody else out there that has the same thoughts and same feelings as they do. And to be honest, I've never really given thought about this quote before until I read The Fault in Our Stars, and then it kind of just clicked into place and I understood it. This video is going to be about my fight against Crohn's disease for the past year and how reading The Fault in Our Stars really saved me. So just as a side note, there's no spoilers in this video. I do read off some quotes from the book, but they don't have any major plot reveals or anything. So if you haven't read the book, you can still watch the video. So last December, I got really sick. Basically, I had to stop working. I couldn't get off the couch. I couldn't really eat anything. I was eating about an egg and 3 sips of water a day, and that was on a good day. I was in so much pain that I was just miserable all the time. I was throwing up. It's disgusting, but it's what happened. So this went on for about 3 months. 3 months that were terrifying. And what was even more terrifying was that my doctors would look at me with concern and sympathy, and that was the worst feeling in the world, knowing that your doctors were scared for you, that they didn't know what was going on. And I thought, I could actually die. It was really silly because we know we can all die at any point. It's just a fact of life, but it wasn't until this moment that my mortality really hit me. I hadn't really thought about it before then. So I remember it was Christmas Eve, and I got a call from the radiology center, and they were like, we got your test back. And they were like, we still don't really know what's going on with your stomach, but we did notice there's a nodule on your lung. They were like, this could be nothing, or it could be something extremely important, so you should probably get it checked out. Merry Christmas. I didn't know what to do. I was like, dealing with my stomach issues was enough to make anyone go crazy, but on top of that, now I have to worry about having some kind of lung problem too. And I don't even smoke. I was like, how the hell did a nodule get on my lung? So basically, I started crying. But really, they were tears of frustration. I was just mad at the world because up until that phone call, I had just been telling myself, there's people that have lots of worse things going on than you do right now. And, I really shouldn't be whining about this. But still, I felt betrayed by the universe. Like, why is this happening to me? I thought of my dad telling me that the universe wants to be noticed. But what we want is to be noticed by the universe. To have the universe give a shit what happens to us. Not the collective idea of sentient life, but each of us as individuals. I wanted the universe to care that my body was failing, and it hurt when I realized that it didn't. I was just one person in the billions of people that populate this planet, and if I died, the world would still go on. So about a month after that phone call, the doctors finally figured out that I had Crohn's disease, and it's basically an autoimmune disease. Basically what was happening was my stomach was getting so inflamed that there was scar tissue buildup, so it was closing off my intestines. My intestines was about, I think, that big, and food wasn't able to go through. When one of the characters says this quote, "What am I at war with? My cancer? And what is my cancer? My cancer is me. The tumors are made of me. They're made of me as surely as my brain and my heart are made of me. It is a civil war with a predetermined winner." And I found myself nodding like my head was going to fall off. I was like, finally, somebody gets it. My body is at war with itself, and there's nothing I can do. Yes, I can try medication, I can try surgery, diet, therapy, all of those things, but in the end, my body's going to do what it wants to do. And at that realization, I felt hopeless. So then there was a day that I had to get another test done. And at this point, I had already had about 1 million IV bags of fluid from being dehydrated. I had had 1 million blood tests done trying to figure out what was wrong. I'd had CAT scans and x-rays and all of that, all within about a 2-month period. And I was just emotionally exhausted. This test that I had to do was one of those tests that you drink all of that nasty fluid and then they put you into one of those machines and it scans your body and they strap you in and you can't move for 20 minutes. This was the worst experience of my entire life, basically. And afterwards, I was so ill and I just wanted it all to be over. And I remember thinking, just looking up to the sky and being like, God, please just take me already. I can't deal with this. I can't do it anymore. And so when I read this quote that I'm going to read to you next, it just really hit home to me. He says, I had been poked and stabbed and poisoned for years, and still I trod on. But make no mistake, in that moment, I would have been very, very happy to die. That was probably one of the hardest moments ever. I've never had a thought like that before. And it was scary. I felt like, you know, is there something wrong with me that I'm thinking this? Am I suicidal? Is this weird? But then I realized after reading this book that people in situations like these feel these things, and it's normal. So shortly after that test, I had to go get new glasses one day. And the guy that's helping me, that's working on my glasses, was like, oh, where do you work? And I was like, oh, well, I'm not currently working right now. And he was like, oh, and he gave me this disgusted look. And he actually looked down at my stomach, which was pretty bloated at that point. It looked like I was pregnant. I just wanted to cry. And I really felt like I was being judged. And when Hazel is constantly feeling like people are just looking at her oxygen tank and judging her, like I got how that felt, because it's this external target almost, or like label, that everyone can see, and they're all making judgments about you without even knowing your story. And it's a terrible feeling. But soon after this situation at the eyeglass store, I started to accept what was happening to me, and even things like my stomach being messed up started to feel normal. It's kind of weird how humans adapt. It was, you know, after 5 months of suffering, it was kind of like my new norm. I was indifferent to it. And you know, the one thing I wasn't indifferent to, though, was causing my family a lot of stress and pain. My parents were so worried, and it got to the point where they were losing weight, and, you know, they weren't leaving the house unless they had to for work or whatever. I remember there was one day that I had fallen asleep on the couch after being so nauseous for hours and then getting really sick, and I woke up and my mom was crying. And do you know what she did? She apologized to me. And literally my jaw just dropped. I was like, you know, here I am, the one causing her all the pain and stress, and she's apologizing to me for having to let that stress out. So Hazel talks about hurting her parents. She says, I hated hurting him. Most of the time I could forget about it. But the truth is, they might be glad to have me around, but I was the alpha and omega of my parents' suffering. And it's true. All I could think about all the time was how I was causing my parents and my family lots of pain and stress. So what did I do? I held it in. I pretended that things were going great. A lot of the time I would say I was feeling better than I actually was. I would say, it's not so bad, or it could be worse. At Christmas, New Year's, and even my birthday, I was all smiles and I was like, yeah, everything's great. Because I didn't want to be the reason that my family was sad. And I didn't want them to be sad at all. So I pretended to be positive, and something really weird happened. I actually became an optimist. I know, I didn't see that coming either. I started really thinking about the things that I've been telling people, like it could be worse, and I realized that it really could be, and I started to find the silver linings in things. Like, true, my hair is falling out from lack of nutrients, but at least I still have my hair, and some people that are sick don't have that. Or true, I can only eat 1 egg a day, but there's people in places like Africa that don't get any food today at all. And it wasn't until the Boston Marathon bombing that I really saw the silver linings and things and thought, you know, true, I need my mom to help me walk because I can't get off the couch, I'm too weak. But I'm still lucky to have the ability to walk. So Gus says this quote in Fault in Our Stars. He says, the definition of humanness is the opportunity to marvel at the majesty of creation. So afterward, while I was getting eviscerated by chemo, for some reason I decided to feel really hopeful. Not about survival specifically, but I felt like Anna does in the book, the feeling of excitement and gratitude about just being able to marvel at it all. And so on that tragic day when the bombing occurred, I was sitting on the couch and I realized that while I couldn't get off the couch, really, I did have the ability to still appreciate life. And I started appreciating the little things in life, like when my family was just all laughing about something and enjoying spending time together, or, you know, on a day when I felt good enough to go sit outside and, you know, just soak up the sun and take a deep breath of air and just enjoy life for what it was. And it wasn't until the day of the bombing that I realized that life is really special and I shouldn't have wished that mine was over even for a second. And this is when I started to realize that maybe things happen for a reason. This experience made me so much stronger, and I had really low self-esteem beforehand, and just knowing that I could get through something like this and that I didn't give up and I fought it even when I wanted to was really reassuring and taught me a lot about myself. So while the suffering was terrible, was it a good thing that I went through this experience so that I could learn about myself and about life more and appreciate both? So there's a scene in the book when she's reading that pillow that Gus's parents have that says something like, "Without pain, how could we know joy?" This is what she says. She says, "Suffice it to say that the existence of broccoli does not in any way affect the taste of chocolate." And I really started thinking things. I was like, maybe she's right. But then I kind of disagreed with her on this. Because before I got Crohn's, I was really crippled by anxiety. I had panic attacks about everything. But then after going through some of these things, I wasn't really scared of things as much anymore, and I was living a life with less anxiety. So without my suffering, I might not have known a life with less anxiety. But I do agree that it's not necessary. Like, we don't need pain to know that joy exists. And without my Crohn's, I would have still known that joy exists, but probably just in a different way. So at this point in my story, the doctors hadn't really stamped an expiration date on me like they did with Hazel, but I still didn't really know what was going to happen to me. And it wasn't until 8 months after this whole ordeal began that the doctors were kind of like, we've tried everything. So they were kind of just like, at this point you have to get surgery. So even though this experience helped with my anxiety, just thinking about going on the operating table and thinking about how I could die on the operating table was enough to worry me, and that's all I thought about for the 2 weeks before the surgery. So Hazel says, "I had a scan scheduled in a couple of weeks. If something was wrong, I'd find out soon enough. Nothing to be gained by worrying between now and then. And yet, still I worried. I liked being a person. I wanted to keep at it. Worrying is yet another side effect of dying." And I instantly connected her. It was like, you shouldn't worry, but you just can't help it. And luckily, the surgery went really well, and I'm back to living my life again. But every day, I think, could the scar tissue come back? Will I have to experience this all over again? Will I have to get another surgery? And I think that worrying is not just a side effect of dying, but it's a side effect of having any kind of chronic disease or sickness. You just never know when your body is going to decide to stop working, and it's very stressful. I read this book about a week after my surgery, and it was the perfect time for me to read it. At this point, I just really needed to know that somebody else felt these things and somebody else thought these things, and I wasn't alone, because I didn't have anyone else to talk to about this. Nobody else in my family had been through anything like this. So I really felt alone. But reading this book, I felt like I was sitting down with a friend swapping war stories. I felt like Hazel was talking to me personally. This book really opened up my eyes to the power of words. This thing that I'm holding up is basically a bunch of tree with ink on it. But that ink and those words had the power to change something in me. Because something really changed for me when I read this book. It gave me hope, and it gave me a purpose. I realized that by Hazel sharing her story with me, even though she's not a real person, but by her sharing her story with me, she helped me. So if I could share my story with somebody that's going through something like this, or if I could recommend this book, I could help them. And by doing that, I'm already adding value to this second chance of life that I've been given. So I hope this video helps somebody out there. Even if you're not going through a chronic disease or a sickness, you're just going through something else. There's somebody else there that probably gets what you're going through and will understand. And, even if it's just in the form of some words, pick up a book, start reading, and you'll be surprised. There's people out there that understand you. You are not alone. So thanks for watching. That's my story, and I don't think this video will ever get to you, but John Green, if you're watching, thank you for writing this story and for just helping people like me that needed to hear what you had to say. So thank you. So now I want to hear your story. Did you read The Fault in Our Stars or any book that really connected with you and helped you through a hard time? Thank you so much for watching. See you later.